Good evening, 3010. I am going to be going over a second video to the second project, the multimodal presentation, so that you can begin to frame this a little better in terms of where this falls in the other coursework that you are doing, as well as what you are intended to get out of this. To get the most out of our time, I'm going to ask that possibly in the next few slides, as I go over some basics, that you go ahead and you just pause the video to read over some of the information that I've provided in front of you. So here we will be looking at what this project is meant to do, how it shows the research you've done thus far, as well as how this will get you towards some conclusions and some answers to your research question. Here I have pointed to where you are at in the semester and in your coursework. You've done some annotating, you've located research, you've crafted a visual organizer that synthesizes some of the basic ideas, you've read some articles, but most importantly, think back to your work in 1020 in the second part of the researched argument where you produced an infographic or a visual argument. That kind of gets you thinking or framed in terms of what you are actually producing and how you are supposed to communicate some of these ideas and arguments as presented in the research. In the third slide here, I am looking at defining multimodality again. And the fact that that sort of describes a piece composed of more than one system of visual or verbal entities. So a lot of times when you're seeing something like this, you're looking at a PowerPoint and you're listening to someone speak, watching them walk through some information, reading that information in front of you. All of those things kind of contribute to an understanding of how it's multimodal or operates on a number of different modes. In the little visual that I have provided here, this is drawing on what many of you had produced as students in English 1020 for your infographic and how you kind of visualize that data as presented in the research that you did on your topics. So the big question is, where does this all get you? Immediately, it gets you at designing and composing this multimodal presentation, getting some input and some feedback from your peers in terms of what's missing, what you maybe want to explore some more, better ways to kind of communicate the information that you're finding. But long term, really looking at refining and getting a more informed discussion about Project 1, Section 3, which is your research question, kind of zeroing in on how your discourse community handles the issue that you are looking into. This is excerpted out of the Bazerman reading that you did, Creating Knowledge. And you can go ahead and pause this slide to read a little more in depth and a little more clearly to give yourself some context. But I wanted you to pay particular attention to this last part here. You'll be obliged to share responsibility for assessing new findings within the discipline, and you will be asked to argue what constitutes disciplinary knowledge in the field. Part of your professional job, long term, will be to read such arguments and to write them. So you are tasked with learning more about your field, the kind of topics and issues that they confront and deal with as a discourse community, assessing how they handle that material, but also finding an entry point for how you will enter that same conversation, how you'll contribute to it, or how some of the research that you're finding helps frame the issue in your perspective on the matter as somebody operating within this discourse community. So putting this into practice, I have given you a sample research question based on my own scholarship. And I have asked, why should college educators use a multimodal framework for first-year composition courses? I've broken out here to the left. This is what I know based on my articles, and I've kind of just given a very generic outline. Source A says this, source B says that, source C argues with source A. And so on and so forth. So you can kind of start organizing as you have in your synthesis maps, who is saying what about your topic. To the right, this is sort of how you assess that information in terms of finding your entry point into the conversation. What do you agree with? What do you refute? Why is that? And what sorts of determinations and conclusions can you draw from it so that you are making sense of this and making it meaningful for yourself. So moving from kind of outlining that information or breaking it into something like very easy to read, like the tables I just showed in the last slide, you're then shifting gears into how to present this a little more refined, make it a little more sophisticated, make it more easily understandable for somebody that's looking at this. I have an entire multimodal presentation here ready to go that I'd like for us just to walk through, and I was going to kind of clue you into what I was thinking, some of my rationale behind how I crafted some of these slides and why I chose to present the material as I did. I've gone ahead and opened the link here, and so you get right to the landing page for the presentation. I'm just going to go ahead and play how it opens.
Why go multimodal? FYC pedagogy as site practical.
So I've gone ahead and I've shared the basic research question, and then I will move to some initial material. I have organized a table of contents so that it guides the rest of the presentation in terms of what I have included and where to find that. Here on this slide, you can see that I've just excerpted a particular quote that I thought spoke volumes for the project at hand and kind of set up some basic context for what I will be discussing further to answer my question. This slide visualizes and puts into easily read graphics some information drawn from a survey or study done by Pew Research. I've also provided, although I won't play for now for the interest of time, some voiceover kind of breaking down this data and concluding what it exactly means or tells us. I'm also going to play just the beginning of this. And in one of the next slides, you can see where I've taken two existing documents and placed them side by side so that I can also provide some information in terms of what we see as an effective way to implement a multimodal framework in first-year composition courses. So although this jumped around a little bit, it hopefully provided some guidance and inspiration for you to begin designing your own multimodal presentations to share your findings, but more importantly, how you are understanding the ways topical issues are handled in your own discourse community. So best of luck. Talk soon.